Hey folks, David Stewart here. Hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Not every story requires a sequel. That is the title of today's video. We live in a time where the series or the franchise or the cinematic universe, these are the main ways that we access stories. This is the main paradigm for marketing fiction, whether it's in a book form or it's a movie or it's a video game. It's all about the value of the franchise. It's Star Wars or it's Star Trek or it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe or it's Marvel Comics universe. Probably not the new universe that Jim Shooter came up with. People don't seem to be big fans of that, but you know, the main Marvel thing, DC Cinematic Universe, right? We now have like Game of Thrones. Is it a cinematic universe? It's on TV, so I don't know. The Game of Thrones franchise is a franchise now. So we live in a time where there's a lot of focus on franchises. I think it's okay to have stories that don't require sequels. Not only that, but I think you risk cheapening and making a bad franchise out of a good standalone story. A great example would actually be Highlander. Highlander, the first movie, is an amazing movie. It has a great soundtrack by Queen. It's got a really fun story, lots of great cinematography. Then they really just kind of went off the deep end with the various sequels, not just movie sequels, but there was also a TV series. And the whole thing became a big jumbled up mess because of a desire to capitalize and recapture the magic of that first movie. Should have just left that one alone. Though I will say that Highlander 2, The Quickening, is one of the strangest sequels. I do kind of want to revisit it for a review because it is just really out of left field compared to that first movie. I think it's worth looking at as maybe as an example of what not to do to establish a franchise. Yet somehow you ended up with a Highlander series out of that, trying to make some kind of sense out of the amalgam of what they've done with it. Now, the main paradigm when writing fiction, because that's what I do a lot of, is the series. If we were going to look at especially the 2010s approach to writing indie fiction, it was to write a 10, 20, 30, 40, as long a series as you could write, that's what you want to write. You want all the books to be maybe 40, 50,000 words, and every single one's going to end on a cliffhanger. And the idea is you throw all your money at book 1, and then people read through to book 20, and you're going to make a bunch of money on it that way. That doesn't really work anymore, but that is a big paradigm that I think has affected a lot of people's mindset, as well as just the general malaise in the entertainment industry of everything has to be a franchise movie or a sequel. It has to be part of the MCU. I think the top 10 movies for 2024, all of them are sequels. There's no original movies that have cracked the top 10 in 2024, which is a very sad state of affairs. But I'm telling you that it's probably better if stories don't have sequels. Now, that's not to say I don't write series of a kind. So you can actually get, just for December and January only, Eternal Dream Christmas 2024 has 10 books in the Eternal Dream universe, including The Bright Children, which has never been published before in a book. It has complete text for Water of Awakening and all 3 Needle Ash books. So you can get a big bunch of fiction. Now, each story in here is connected, but they're all separate. I like to give my characters some sense of closure. Now, I also bring this up because not just this is a great value and a gigantic book, but I have written books that people have asked for sequels for. One of them in particular is Muramasa Blooddrinker, my samurai novel. It's a great book. I love it. But the characters end their story in a place where I'm okay leaving them where they are. And I think people ask for a sequel because they enjoyed that book enough that they want to know, they just want more of that book. They want more of how that made them feel. They want more of that action. They want more samurai stuff. They just want more of it. And it's kind of an underfed, it's not even really a genre, but an area of fiction is like the samurai stuff. So I was happy to make that book. It's been pretty popular over the course of my career here. But while I do kind of have an idea for a potential sequel, I've never written it because I just don't really think it's necessary to write a sequel. I didn't end the story in a way where there's any more resolution that needs to happen to any of the main characters. They're all where they need to be. They ride off into the sunset. Their character arc went all the way to its conclusion. They had their realizations, they had their catharsis, they closed the conflict of the book off. The next book would just be another adventure. Now, you could transition into more episodic things where just every book is a different adventure with the same characters, and the characters are mostly flat, something like The Shadow as an example. You could do that, but I don't really feel the need to do that. I think Muramasa is just fine the way I wrote it. And I think it ends in a great way where we can feel good about what all the characters have come to realize, where they're going, and what good positive possibilities are waiting for them after the conclusion of the story. So yeah, I don't really feel like you need to have a sequel. And if I did, I'd probably do something more like what I do with the Eternal Dream books, which is a focus on different characters, because the main characters there have really already had their character arc. In order for me to continue with them and thinking that they have to grow all the time and having that same kind of characterization, you have to regress them. And this was a complaint that I had about Words of Radiance, which was the second Stormlight Archive book, which is you had Kaladin go through this whole character arc and reach this point where he had achieved his power and achieved his full realization of himself. And then what do we do for the second book? We bust him down, we make him regress, we make him undo all the lessons he learned so that he can just relearn them in the last 200 pages. And it's not, some people really liked that book, but that was a thing that kind of got me, is like, well, we're just kind of going backwards with this character. Shallan actually progressed, but in order to have Kaladin sitting around, we had to put him in jail and do some stuff like that. It just didn't feel very good. And so it's easy to get in that position where you're writing sequels, especially if you're writing a very character-heavy, character-driven, character growth kind of story for your first book. Where are they going to go for book 2, book 3, book 4, book 5? What's going to happen? You can't really have infinite character growth. And Brian Niemeyer, who I've had on the show a bunch of times, he wrote an article recently about that, kind of the problem with always having your characters grow and things like that. Now, I did have one that I had imagined as a series without a lot of character development, just minimal kind of little character development over time, and that was the Deep Time series. But I didn't continue that series. I only wrote one book because the person who I created that universe with was no longer really interested in doing anything with it. So I just kind of let that one rot on the vine. Plus, the first book wasn't a big hit. While it is actually one of my most read books, it's like one of my least reviewed books, which lets me think that people have bought the book, people have downloaded the book, but they don't read the book. Otherwise, they would probably leave a couple stars on it. So that lets me know that that book was a big failure. I don't have to write a sequel. Again, the characters do have a little bit of growth in that, but the main thing is the main conflict is introduced and it's concluded in that book. So there's no reason to write a sequel. I don't have to write a sequel. Not every story requires a sequel. And I wish that, I guess, our greater culture would be able to take that attitude, and consumers are more willing to view things that are standalone. Read standalone books, watch standalone movies. And even now, I think they came out with a Gladiator 2. Talk about a ridiculous idea for a sequel. I've talked about this before, like unnecessary sequels like Blade Runner 2049. They just don't need to exist. There's no reason to make that sequel. The story is over. But Gladiator, like, the guy is dead. Everybody's dead at the end. So, like, what is the... I don't know if everybody's dead, but Maximus is dead. So what's the point of the second movie? What are you doing with that? It seems really bizarre, at least bizarre to me. Or to have like a Heat 2. Okay, we're gonna have a Heat 2. That's really weird. I think it's okay for movies to not have sequels. I understand why they make sequels, and it really has to do with just money, being able to take the goodwill that people have towards a movie and milk it, right? It's part of the milking phase. You want to make things into a franchise because then it's less investment for more return. You don't have to advertise as much because people already know the property. You don't have to have as high a budget because it doesn't have to be as high a quality, frankly. You don't have to hire great writers because people are going to go watch the sequels anyway. So you don't need high quality writers on staff. You don't really need as high a quality in general. It can be a lot worse and people will come see it. And we've seen this with, pick your franchise. It's had bad movies in some cases for like 3 decades and people are still going to see them. They're going to see Child's Play 10. They're going to see Star Trek 20, whatever it's going to be. They're going to go see that franchise movie. So that's why they do that. And same thing with remakes. Like, why make a live action remake of The Lion King because people will watch it. That's why, all right? So I wish people were more willing to try out new things and not make everything into a franchise, but that's the paradigm that we live in. My big point is not every book requires a sequel. You can get a book that doesn't have a sequel if you join my mailing list, deviouspress.com/list, Demon X Machina. I believe that's still the free book. If you are on the Patreon, you get a literary fiction collection, Afterglow Generation Y, collection of short stories. That's what's on the docket for December. And of course, grab the giant anthology of a bunch of Eternal Dream books through January. Then it's going away. $10 for the ebook, $9.99 for the ebook, which is a great value for $10. 10 books for $10. There we go. The paperback's more expensive, but you get a big, massive tome that does have all the maps and everything in it. So please buy that, and you'll have a collector's item on your hands. I'll see you all next time. Leave me your thoughts down below. Is it good that some stories didn't have a sequel? I remember they came out with I believe it was actually a prequel, like a prelude to Kill a Mockingbird, called Go Tell a Watchman, and it might have been a case of like elder abuse of Lee Harper to like get this manuscript printed. That was a couple of years ago. So that one really struck people like, why did this get released? It's like, it got released for money. That's why it got released, is because previously existing goodwill towards things, we can milk it like a cow and get the value out of it as much as we can, then we'll discard it, right? It's why we haven't had Highlander movies in a long time. Though I have heard that Henry Cavill would do a Highlander remake, which might be interesting, might be an interesting idea. As much as I am not good on remakes, let's just enjoy the original Highlander movie with the Queen soundtrack and everything that goes with it. I kind of trust his judgment. I don't know. He seems like one of our guys. Leave me your thoughts down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a great day.